Hey, what is up, guys? I am Hippie. I want to welcome you back to a brand new CouchCraft video for you guys today. So, we're going to be doing something a little bit different today. I got to measure this out even kind of a little bit. Um, so basically, I was just rendering the video yesterday that I had uploaded yesterday. Where I was talking about my grandma and such. And while I was editing and rendering the video, I realized that I had forgotten to do something that I had that I was supposed to. Wow, that was a quick growing melon. Um, Something that I was going to say that I just can I not? Okay, and then take that. Okay, there we go. Wow, I can't believe that actually worked. I didn't know you could do that. I wanted to explain why I have this stuff here, but I just forgot about it and I didn't get the chance to do it. So I'm going to explain it today, what's going on and why there's all these crops in my base. So the potatoes are here just, plainly because that is my food source. But I also got some other stuff lying around here. I got some sugar cane and I just picked up my pumpkins, but I did have pumpkins hanging around here as well. And I just totally forgot to explain why those were there. So we are going to explain that today. Yep, that should work. So basically, I talked about it the other day. Well, actually, not the other day. It was probably about it must have been over a week ago. I know that much. I don't know what episode it was, but very briefly I said something about the hills have pies, which wasn't actually meant to be anything. It was just a joke, but I've actually made a decision to roll with that since I kind of like that idea. So we are now going with the hills have pies, and we are going to make ourselves a little business over at the spawn town. Now, I don't know how efficient it's going to be. People were talking that pies actually are a somewhat of a good food source, so that's quite interesting. I never really knew that. I never even made a pumpkin pie in Minecraft. So it's going to be interesting to get into it. I actually had to look even just to see how you make pumpkin pies in Minecraft because I didn't even know. I was like, oh man, I'm starting that pie shop, but I don't know how to make pies. So I had to go and look it up, and all it really takes is some sugar, some eggs, and some pumpkins, as we have here. You actually need... Wait, no, maybe it's... Yeah. Okay, so we would need 4 in each of these rows. Okay, let's just go stretch that out a bit. So basically what I'm doing here is making enough momentarily to make 9 stacks of pumpkin pie. I think that'll be a good start to it, and I guess we're going to find out as we go. I'm saying a lot because I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to do this. But, I gotta stop saying today is Throwback Thursday. A lot of YouTubers that I watch, whether they're gamers or vloggers or whatever, I notice a lot of people do Throwback Thursday stories and stuff like that, and a lot of people that I follow on Twitter do Throwback Thursday as well. I decided today that we are going to say our own little Throwback Thursday for you guys. So, this was about... Man, this would have had to have been, at this point, 6 or 7 years ago. So I can't even think, 11 years old. I was 11, and my brother would have been 17, maybe 16. I'm not sure if he was 17 at the time or if he hadn't had his birthday yet. But we were just chilling out in our living room, and we had just recently put up some new curtains, and the old curtains, well, not the curtains, but the curtain rods were hanging out on this little table that was up in our living room. So, being the cool guy that I am, as I always do, I see this as an opportunity for a sword fight. And my brother joins in as well. So we pick up these curtain rods, and, you know, I'm kind of smacking him with them and whatnot, and he's fighting back with his curtain rod. And he either put his down, or I think I took his out of his hand. I was able to grab his, and that's why it led to what happened. I grabbed his curtain rod and pulled it out of his hand, no problem. Then he tried to grab my curtain rod out of my hand, and I didn't know it, but somehow the curtain rod had gotten bent, and they're just those really thin, cheap plastic curtain rods. So when it bent, it left this really jagged corner on the inside of the curtain rod. So he grabbed my curtain rod, and of course, you know, he was trying to disarm my sword, and I could not allow that. I had to fight back. I grabbed it and pulled it as hard as I could, and I didn't think anything of it. And then about 5 seconds later, maybe, he looks down at his hand, and I see, at the time, just a drop of blood. So I'm like, oh man, I cut him. So I get up, and I go and grab him like a cloth to put on his hand. And by the time I come back, the blood has now transferred from just a tiny bit on the finger to now running down the palm of his hand. So I'm like, oh, that's not good. Then I get up to go grab him some more towels, because I'm like, oh, there's a little bit more blood than that one towel can handle. And I come back, and the blood is now no longer on his hand, running down his entirety of his arm onto the floor. And we had these hard tile, I guess it would be called. I don't know what the word for it is. Yeah, I suppose it's hard tile. These hard, like, laminate tiled floors, and they're like where he was sitting in the chair, where his arm was over the ground, was already almost covered in blood, that little floor. So there's blood all over the floor. It's like creeping into the grout now. And I'm like, oh no, I think I may have cut him more than what it appears. And he looks at me and he goes, well, that's stitches. And I'm like, no. So I'm like, I go and get my mom. I'm like, hey, can I not bone meal that one? I don't know. It's not working. So I go and get my mom, and I get her to come out, and I say, I cut his finger. And she comes and takes a look, and she has him move over to the bathroom sink, or not the bathroom sink, the kitchen sink. Oh no, that's why. I got disconnected. Okay, sorry about that. The server went down for a little bit. It didn't seem to want to let me back in, so I don't know what was going on there. I gotta remember where I was at. Oh yeah, so my mom takes my brother's hand over to the sink, and at this point, there's quite a bit of blood. I'm not even gonna lie. There's quite a bit of blood coming out of his hand, and I immediately think, I'm like, he's gonna have to go get stitches. He is literally gonna have to go get stitches right now. And I just cut my brother's finger open. And so my dad was at work at the time, so he could not like take him to the hospital, and by the time he would have got there, it would have been a while. So my mom calls my sister, and they come and pick up my brother and my mom and take them to the emergency room for my brother to get his hand stitched up. Which he does. He ends up having to get, I don't know how many stitches he ended up getting. So I'm like at the house the entire day. And the whole day I'm just sitting there thinking, I'm like, man, I know what's going to happen. I'm like, my brother's going to come home. He's going to be mad that he had to get stitches. And he's going to straight up murder me. I'm like, no joke, this is how I die. So I'm sitting there, I'm like writing a will and like getting my last wishes and all that stuff sorted out. And I'm home for like, I don't know, maybe another 4 hours or something. And I might have to move this up one. And so eventually, my dad's able to get off of work. And he comes home. And he comes and picks me up. And he goes, how bad was it? I'm like, I don't know. They went straight to the hospital right after. He goes, yeah, I heard he's got to get stitches. Not going to be nice. And so I'm thinking, I'm like, man, this is it. I'm dead. I'm going to die. We eventually, drive down there, and we're waiting for, like, in the parking lot of the ER, we're waiting for, I don't know, it was a long time. It must have been, like, maybe 4 hours. We were just in the parking lot, so this has been about 7 hours since I had cut his finger at this point. Do I have no wood? Wow. Yeah, so it's been about 6-7 hours since I had cut his finger. I cut his finger right around noon, and around 7 o'clock, he finally gets out of the hospital. And they come out, and I'm like, man, he's going to be mad. So I didn't say anything as he got in the back, and he's just in the back. And then he just looks at me and holds up his hand, and it's got these bandages, and it's got like these little 2 braces on the side of his finger, and his finger's wrapped up real tight, and he goes, 4 stitches. So I'm like, 4 stitches? I thought it was gonna be this huge thing. Like, I thought it was just the amount of blood. I'm like, I cut my brother's finger off. He's not gonna have a finger again. He's gonna be paralyzed from the waist down for the rest of his life. He's never gonna be a race car driver again. I'm thinking all these things, but nope. Comes out 4 stitches. But I don't know if he just wasn't mad or if he was just too hopped up on like pain medication to even care, because he did not seem to have like a care in the world at the moment. So I just went along with it. I'm just like, oh, that's not too bad. He's like, nah. And then later he tells me the story. He says he goes into the hospital, and the doctors take so long to get him back there. When they do eventually get him back there, they get him into a room, and they hook him up to an IV for some reason. I guess they were just hooking up anybody to an IV that came into the ER back then during that day, because it was, I guess, really hot out, and they said everybody was coming in dehydrated. So they were hooking everybody up to an IV that day when they came in. So they hook him up to his IV, and they're eventually, they're waiting for like an hour in the room, just in the room. Finally, the doctor comes in, he takes a look, and he goes, so what happened? And my brother goes, I was playing with a curtain rod with my brother, and he cut my finger. And or no. He says what happened. My mom says that. My mom says him and his little brother were playing with a curtain rod, and he cut his finger. And then the doctor looks at my brother, and he goes, so what really happened? I guess this doctor was just convinced that my mom had cut his finger for some reason. The doctor just did not believe that that's what happened. He said, what really happened? So yeah, my brother's like, yeah, that's what really happened. I cut my finger with a curtain rod. And doctor's like, all right. So I guess my brother said the worst part was that before they could stitch him, they had to numb his finger. So they took this really long needle, and they stuck the needle right into the sides of both sides of his finger. And I guess it was a pretty long needle. And he said that hurt more than the stitches, more than the cut itself, more than the next day after when it was sore because of the stitches, of course. He said it did not matter. That needle hurt the most. So, yeah, I guess that's the I guess that's the tale of the story here. Do not play with curtain rods, because you'll cut your brother's finger open and give him stitches. And he said, I was just talking about that to him today. I was like, Throwback Thursday today, I'm going to tell that story about when I cut your finger. He goes, still can't feel anything in it. So, yeah, I guess for like they said it was only going to last like the first 2 weeks, but apparently he still hadn't gotten the sensation in his finger back yet. So I gave him permanent numbness in the tip of his finger. But I told him, you're looking at it all wrong, man. This isn't a bad thing or anything wrong with you. You know what you ought to be doing? You ought to be using this as some sort of a superpower. I said, you go into a bar and you tell some guy, you be like, I bet you $50 I can poke myself in the tip of the finger with a pencil. It ain't gonna hurt. And the guy's like, you're on. So, you know, my brother sticks the pencil in the end of his finger and he's like, nothing. And then he'd get $50. So he could be using this for, well, I guess there was wood in there the whole time. How wonderful. Still gotta work on this soon. But yeah, I told him he's going about it all wrong. He needs to be using it as a superpower, which I don't know. For some reason, he's not. He just doesn't want to use it for superpowers, I suppose. Why is a cobble in there? But yeah, that is how I ended up about cutting off my brother's finger. It wasn't that bad, actually. I'm just so you guys know, in case you're wondering, I'm over exaggerating by a lot. Like, he had no chance of losing his finger or anything like that, and all good. He never retaliated, I don't think. Let me think back now. I tell you what, though, I suppose mine was probably the retaliation. One time when I was like, I don't know, it must have been like 6 or 7 at the most. I was showing my brother my ninja skills, and I was kicking the air. And I kicked my bedpost, which was like a solid oak bed. So I kick it, and I'm like, yeah! And then instantly, just pain just ran down my foot, or up my foot, I should say. And I couldn't move my toe at all. And so I was showing it to my mom. I'm like, I think I broke my toe. She's like, let me see. And I show it to her. My brother's looking at it too, and he goes, does it hurt? I said, yeah. And then he flicks it. He goes, does it hurt now? And joke's on him, because it ended up swelling up my toe, and I couldn't put on a shoe, so I didn't have to go to school for the next day. So thanks, man. That got me out of school that day. So basically, I think we're about done. I got enough chickens in there to really be laying a good amount of eggs now. A dual layer of reed, so that should help me out with the sugar cane. Pumpkins, I think that's enough pumpkins right there to get me going. I'm gonna do some AFK work tonight and just kind of chill out for a while until I can get to 9 stacks of these, 9 stacks of these, and then to where all of these are filled up as well. So I bet you that's probably gonna take me quite a while, but I don't mind doing a little bit of AFK type of grindy work while I edit and stuff like that. So that's actually one of the most fun parts about this survival, is getting to do that. But that's going to do it though for now. Thank you guys so much for watching. I have been Hippie, and I'll see you guys next time.